So we were discussing slightly off air, and maybe our viewers don't really know about this, whether or not the depiction of psychopaths has been Hollywoodized or how accurate it is. And we opened this by saying he's, I suppose, a quintessential psychopath who can operate these high pressure, high stress, people buy from people businesses, particularly like the news media. But there's the strange contradiction between his impulsivity and his control. Does that meld up with psychopaths who, I know there's the common distinction between there's a psychopath and a sociopath. Most people think, sociopaths can have it under control, as psychopaths are super impulsive. Is that kind of a myth?
It's probably more the other way around.
Right.
Psychopaths tend to be a bit more calculated, a bit more focused on blending in and adhering to social norms, whereas sociopaths don't. They're a bit more impulsive, they're a bit more reckless, they're more willing to go against social norms to get their own ends. So there is a difference, but to most people's minds, it's a pretty small difference, and it's a matter of debate how different they really are. But I think they make sense as distinct entities. But to go back to some of the dark triad stuff, we said that he's not necessarily the most typical fit for the narcissistic traits, but for Machiavellianism and psychopathy, I mean, you couldn't get a better fit, could you? Yeah. He's very calculating. He clearly tries to manipulate people. I mean, the scene where he's trying to leverage his clips to get a date. Oh, I couldn't watch that.
It's genuinely
so
unsettling.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Here we go. Cabanita has been called an authentic taste of Mexico City. Do you want to go with me? I think we could have fun together.
Thanks, but I'm busy.
Saturday's your night off, isn't it?
I have a rule, Lou. I don't date people I work with. And I'm twice your age.
I like older women. Besides, I don't work with you. You're someone I sell to.
And I don't want to fuck that up.
What if by saying no, you fuck it up?
Well, especially the date itself as well, where he's not even negging her. He's just openly pointing out all of her personal flaws and insecurities, and using that as leverage as to why she should not only give him a pay rise and exclusivity and mention on air for clout, but also be his very transactional kind of prostitute girlfriend. And all of that happens off air. I believe there is a deleted scene where they're in his apartment, but it goes from that to later he then says, and next time I want you to do the things that I ask you when we're alone in my apartment.
Now, when I say that I want these things, I mean that I want them, and I don't want to have to ask again. And the last thing that I want, Nina, is for you to do the things that I ask you to do when we're alone together in your apartment, not like the last time.
And it's like, okay, so she agreed to it. That's very unsettling. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's a clear point where you can sympathize with him to a certain extent up to that point, and then you're just like, no, this guy is a monster.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, speaking about his Machiavellianism, he actually, when he's talking to Rick, the guy, I forget the guy's Bill something, he died recently. Same fella that was in Aliens, wasn't it? It was.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we'll put the clip there.
That's it, man. It's game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
When he's telling him, I want you to sign up to my news business, and here's all the perks you can get. You can take your cut, you can have your own van. And he's very coldly saying, I want to grab you by the ears and shout in your face, I'm not interested. Why aren't you getting this?
I feel like grabbing you by your ears right now and screaming in your face, I'm not fucking interested.
To be fair, in that situation, I kind of got where he was coming from, in that he's just like, yeah, I'm not interested. I want to do my own thing. Yeah. And he's just carrying on trying to pester him to do it.
Yeah.
And, being annoyed is warranted. Maybe he took it a bit too far, and I think he probably did in saying something like that. He should just been like, I'm not interested, walked away, got in his car and drove away, rather than shouting at him needlessly.
Yeah. And then there's that later bit as well where he's, I might have said Rick before. That's Riz Ahmed's character, because that's his second stringer, the homeless dude. Yeah, he's in the car with him near the end, and he's pretty much already set up in his head how he's going to get him killed. And Riz Ahmed's trying to blackmail him into getting more money, and he offers him an executive position title with a slight pay rise, and he just goes, I don't care about my title. And Lou then just completely off topic. Just says, what if my problem was that I don't? What if my problem wasn't that I don't understand people, but that I don't like them? What if I was the kind of person who was obliged to hurt you for this? I mean, physically. I think you'd have to believe afterward, if you could, that agreeing to participate and then backing out at the critical moment was a mistake, because that's what I'm telling you as clearly as I can.
Oof.
Yeah, it's a very well articulated threat. Again, morally reprehensible, but he's very astute as to people's insecurities and how to exploit them. So yeah, hitting on the Machiavellianism is bang on. He's also living proof that left wingers can also be incels. So vindicates your recent chat with William Costello, doesn't it?
What do you mean? As in,
well,
is he a left winger? I didn't see any political affiliation.
Well,
going on there.
It's strange. So I mean, I'm probably just cascading all of the news media as leftist, particularly because they have a racially conscious bias. And I suppose we should actually mention that because there is a point of where they quite overtly try to make this sort of like right-wing news outlet in LA, which is hilarious. But
those exist, apparently.
Yeah, well, other than Fox, and even then, it's just 'cause Nina at one point says to him when he's asking, "Oh, if it bleeds, it leads." You know, is that what we film? Do you want something like this? And he goes, "Oh, bloody," and she goes, "Oh, that's only part of it. We like crime, not all crime. A carjacking in Compton, for example, that isn't news now, is it? We find our viewers are more interested in urban crime creeping into the suburbs. What that means is a victim or victims, preferably well off and or white, injures at the hands of the poor or a minority."
We find our viewers are more interested in urban crime creeping into the suburbs. What that means is a victim or victims, preferably well off and white, injured at the hands of the poor or a minority.
No. That just isn't the modern news, as judging by, I'm sure, the unending amount of clips that will be played as we're talking here of fiery but mostly peaceful protests, where CNN were running interference for BLM just as they were crashing into their headquarters in Georgia, I believe there was. The idea that stories like Leicester would get covered because people in the suburbs are terrified of that creeping in. No. And malfeasance has gone on for long before 2014 when this was shot. So, in many respects, again, it's a really good, really interesting film, but it's infected with Hollywood, and the moral paradigm and media representation are quite inverted to what they actually are.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And I think that they're portraying a media that really doesn't exist anymore. Maybe a long time ago, the media in LA was like that, but I think the time in which they set it isn't consistent with the state of the media that we have now.
I mean, they're still just as vulturous because if you look at, I think the Night Stalker case, it's actually quite an interesting comparison point to this. Not just because him and Lou share the same haircut and level of personal hygiene by the look of it being so greasy, but the way the news media were just. They nearly destroyed the whole case, for example, by leaking his shoe size. It's like, why would you screw over the police investigation just to get clicks? You know? And
well, that's entirely obvious. It's exactly that. And I think the film does a really good job of showing the incentive pressures to be immoral. And I think that that's one of the best sort of presentations of how this comes about in media in particular, in that at the start, they were more concerned, the newsroom that Lou was working with, they were more concerned about, can we air this? This is a breakfast show. Are we sure we can show something so horrific? And by the end, they're showing some of the most graphic stuff you can imagine.
In the primetime slot, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think the film tries to present it as Lou sort of degrading their moral compass over time. But I think that it's more of a commentary on just how the pressures towards success lead people to making immoral decisions, because there is the voice of morality. I can't remember the guy's name, but he's constantly saying, like, yeah, we can't do this. This isn't right.
How much of this can we show?
You mean legally?
No, morally. Of course, legally.
Journalistically and ethically?
This isn't Hartford.
We are beyond all broadcast standards.
Have you seen the overnights? I'll risk the fine.
What did you pay for this?
Are you sure you can show this because families watch this show?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Like, that sort of moral concern is what you should be feeling. But because the way in which the film is set up, it shows it from Lou's perspective. You can understand why he's doing what he's doing. And you see, I forgot the name of her character, but the the lady who controls what's shown on the news.
Oh, Nina. Yeah.
Yes, Nina. You can see how he kind of gets under her skin and starts to push her in that direction because his clips, his sensational, horrific footage gets her recognition. I mean, it gets her show to be renewed and she gets another contract. So it has real utility to it in furthering a career. And it almost seems like that the film is setting up so that morality is at odds with a successful career in media.
Yeah.
Which
it is a brilliant indictment. Oh, that's how we got here. It is a brilliant indictment of the news industry. And that's why I think it's accidentally a deeply conservative film. Because if you look at the script, the opening lines are very specific. Oh, we want loads of shots of LA, you know. And that's why I think the bias of the news has been skewed by a Hollywood who wants to present all news media as evil, right-wing and racist. But that's not the facts on the ground. But then it's itself an indictment of the city out of LA as covered in traffic, covered in crime, smothered by accidents and circled by vultures in the news media that will pick apart every bit of human suffering just for views.
It's making it seem like the desert that it is in a way.
Yeah.
But the opening of the film, it's funny you mentioned that. In the opening of the film, they show lots of clips of LA, but it's not like a taxi driver scene where they're driving through and you see all the degradation. It shows it almost as a bit of a utopia. Everything's working well. Everything looks nice. It's all clean. I mean, that's not necessarily accurate from what I've seen of LA.
No, definitely not Skid Row.
It sets it up as this really nice place, and then it cuts to Lou being a criminal, and it's trying to put him at odds, making the place worse, I think. So it's showing everything working as it should. Everything's nice. Everything looks good. Everything seems to be functional. And then the cut to him, I think, is deliberate as like a contrast. He's part of the problem of why LA has become so bad.
It's like
that he's just out for himself.
Yeah, where you have all the loading screens and the panning shots, these beautiful scenic hills. Meanwhile, you know, if you zoom in, someone's nicked a car is running around with a rocket launcher, and it's kind of the same effect there. But then again, that's an indictment of the Democrat-run leftist cities, the Democrat populated news media, even though they're trying to spin it a different way. Hollywood itself, there were actually multiple journalists who complained and gave this bad reviews because they said it reflects really poorly on us, and this isn't what it's like, we swear. Sounds like coke to me. And then all of the law enforcement agencies in this, way back before BLM defund the police, I think this might be the same year as Ferguson, actually, the Michael Brown one.
2014, yeah.
Yes. So, but they're presented as basically being put upon by all these journalists invading their space and doing actual decent police work or rescuing people from accidents with a fire engine. So the innate conservatism of this film makes it quite compelling, and that's what's close to reflect reality. If you took that line from Nina out about, you know, crime, about minorities creeping into the suburbs, that would be a wholly accurate representation of the rest of the media apparatus.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.